Tansei, welcome back to Métis Minute, your source for Métis news in Region 7. So today's episode is a bit of a follow-up to a story we covered on Valentine's Day. As you know, Talk is Free Theatre is in its 2-week run of its production, First Métis Man of Odessa. The show was written and produced by a Métis man, but we wanted to focus today's story on the Ukrainian side of the play. This past weekend marked the second-year anniversary of the Russian invasion of the Ukraine. But the war against Russia and the Ukraine has been going on for so much longer than those 2 years. We know that you may have been inundated with all this information about conflicts happening overseas. But we cannot forget about the very real struggles that the people of the Ukraine continue to face. We attended a rally for the Ukraine, but before we dive into that, we wanted to share some words that the director of the First Métis Man of Odessa had to share before one of the performances.
The way that I've been entering into my theater making and theater creating is telling these human stories and I think that is really our strength as artists and theater makers, and I think that people can get desensitized to the news, or it's very easy to turn away or to read an article and to not, it's like a survival mechanism, you don't feel anything. But being able to experience a story like this with other people, and just experience a human experience allows you to feel and understand in a different way. And the show isn't just about war, which I think is really important, especially right now. And especially for Ukraine's experience, that Ukraine is a beautiful country with a rich culture that is not and should not only be defined by this war that it never asked for. It is undoubtedly, the war is like a tattoo that will never go away, but it is not the foundation of what that culture is about. And Matt is not Ukrainian, and him coming to Ukraine, he was interested in telling those human stories with us. And that is where we have landed now. And yeah, but this story is about love, and it's a love story, and I think that is how people have connected with this story. So I had never really considered how my Ukrainian identity and my artistic identity could merge, but it was really it was after the Euromaidan, the Revolution of Dignity in Ukraine in 2013-14, and I came across my grandmother's journal that she had kept while she was emigrating from Ukraine. The things that she was writing while she was fleeing Ukraine was essentially such similar sentiments that people were expressing in the revolution. She wrote, "How can our land not but be fertile? With so much blood, both Ukrainian and foreign, has continually seeped into it, which shows that our enemies must love our land more than we do, for they fight for it ceaselessly. Will we live to see that moment when our people join the circle of free nations?" And I actually came to Matt, a very powerful line, yeah, and so this is over 70 years ago, and still so relevant now. And I went to Matt and I was like, I think you should write a play inspired by my father's journal, and he was like, I think you should write a play inspired by your father's journal. And I was like, oh, okay. And that's when we went to Ukraine. But yeah, but that's really when I feel like I tapped into, I evolved as an artist, and it was just showed me how drawing from your authentic self and how embracing really like the fullness of my identity really made me a stronger theater, more full theater artist. And so that's when I started creating, and then Matt had asked me to direct this show.
First Métis man of Odessa reminds us that we cannot forget the people of the Ukraine. Much like the fight of Indigenous peoples here on Turtle Island, it is a battle that is best fought when we come together as a community. That was the message and the feeling that we got while we were at the rally for the Ukraine.
Welcome to our rally event, Stand with Ukraine, commemorating the second anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine on this day, February 24th, 2024. Again, thank you all for coming. Today with us, we have our honored dignitaries from in and around the Barrie area. I'd like to introduce you to His Worship, Mr. Alex Nuttall, Mayor of the City of Barrie, Councillor Craig Nixon from Ward 2 in Barrie, representative from the provincial government, MPP Doug Downey, and Representative Andrea Kanchan. I'd also like to thank, of course, everyone from the Ukrainian community, but I'd also like to welcome people from the Latvian community, Sveiks, and also from the Estonian community, Tere Tulemast. Okay, now we'll commence with the national anthem. Слава і воля, ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануєм і ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Okay, thank you, and thank you, Vita Alexei, for singing the Ukrainian national anthem. Now will invite His Worship Mayor Alex Nuttall for a short speech.
Thank you so much. It's certainly an honor to be here today, and I have a proclamation to read on behalf of the city of Barrie. But before I do, I just want to say this is a sad day. It's a day that we wish we didn't have to come and commemorate. It's one that Vladimir Putin, when invading Ukraine, has started. The countless lives that have been lost in between, we mourn for today. But more than anything, We stand as a people here, whether you're Ukrainian Canadian or any other type of Canadian. We stand here together united with the spirit of Ukraine, one that is going to defeat Vladimir Putin and is going to ensure that the Ukraine is maintained as a free country. And I just want to say that my prayers and thoughts are with your country every day. And if you are new to the city of Barrie, and if you are here as a Ukrainian refugee or somebody who's immigrated here since the beginning of the war, we want to say welcome. This is your home, and I always want you to feel like this is your home away from home. I'm not going to read a proclamation on behalf of the city. Whereas the war on Ukraine commenced 2 years ago on February 24th, 2022, and is still continuing today as the forces of the Russian Federation continue their strikes on key Ukrainian cities. Whereas on this day, the Ukrainian population in the city of Barrie reflect on the millions of Ukrainians who've lost their lives, were forced to flee from their homes to seek refuge. Many sought protection in unknown countries, forcing them to be separated from their family and loved ones. Whereas the Ukrainian community has a long and proud history in this country, as well as locally in the city of Barrie, has made many significant contributions to the well-being, growth, and prosperity of Canada while having to overcome these tremendous obstacles. Whereas the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian armed forces are courageously defending their country from the Russian Federation's aggression, whereas the people of Canada, the people of Barrie stand with Ukraine and support the Ukrainian people's right to statehood, independence, freedom, and self-determination. Whereas the blue and yellow flag of Ukraine will be flown outside of Barrie as a symbol of solidarity of the people in the city with the Ukrainian people and Ukrainian Canadians, to remember and honor all those who have suffered and lost their lives during the war in Ukraine, or to those who were displaced and separated from family. We stand with the citizens of Ukraine and commit to providing humanitarian relief for civilians in need among the Ukrainian community within the city of Barrie. Therefore, I, Alex Nuttall, Mayor of the city of Barrie, do hereby proclaim February 24th, 2024 as a day to recognize the 2-year anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Okay, now I'd like to invite MPP Doug Downey and Representative for Andrea Canchin to the microphone, please.
Thank you so much. Priscilla's here on behalf of Andrea Canchin and myself, Doug Downey, and the local MPP for Barrie, Springwater, and Oro-Medonte. I'm also the Attorney General, and so law and order matters a lot to me. And I can tell you, 2 weeks ago, I was in Estonia, and I see the Estonian flag over there. And I had the privilege of hearing firsthand some of the impacts of the scourge that is happening by Putin. And so I just want you to know that our government and we both stand with Ukraine. The Premier is at this very moment standing with Ukrainians in Toronto at a similar ceremony. And so I want, as the Mayor said, for you to know that this is your province, this is your home, and thank you for being here. We stand with you.
Okay, and now I'd like to invite the MPs from the federal government, John Broussard and Doug Shipley.
Thank you, Roman. Good afternoon, everyone. And it is on this solemn occasion that we stand here 2 years after the illegal invasion by Putin the Barbarian. And I want you to know that on behalf of Canada's Conservatives, we stand in support of Ukraine in the past, now, and always. And we must remain united. We must remain united as Canadians in this cause, because the threat of Putin is not just a threat on Ukraine, it's a threat on our democratic values, the values that we hold dear as Western nations: freedom, democracy, rule of law, and human rights. And to those of you who are here in Barrie, who've come to Barrie fleeing the war in Ukraine, I want you to know how welcome you are. But I also want you to know that we're going to get you home as quick as we can by supporting Ukraine till the end and until victory. Doug Shipley and I, the MP for Barrie, Springwater, Oro-Medonte, are here on behalf of not just the people we represent, but the Honorable Pierre Poilievre. And he's asked me to read this message to you today. It's a pleasure to be here today on behalf of the Conservative Party of Canada and our leader, Pierre Poilievre. Unfortunately, Mr. Poilievre couldn't attend since he's speaking at another event commemorating the solemn anniversary, but he asked me to share this message on his behalf. For 2 years, the world has witnessed the heroic struggle of the Ukrainian people as they fight against Putin's campaign of hatred and violence. We've heard horrifying stories of Ukrainian children being abducted en masse, of Russian soldiers raping women, and other heinous war crimes. As once safe Ukrainian neighborhoods have become scenes of war and destruction, Ukrainians have bravely answered the call to defend their homeland, putting their lives on the line in the hope of repelling tyranny and restoring peace to Ukraine. Today, we honor the bravery of these remarkable patriots. We grieve for those who have suffered the unimaginable loss of war and those who are still fighting on the front lines. As Ukrainians continue to defend their homeland, we must also remember that they are fighting for our shared values of democracy, freedom, human rights, and the rule of law. Ever since Prime Minister Stephen Harper confronted Putin after his illegal annexation of Crimea, Conservatives have been clear. We will always stand with the people of Ukraine in defense of its freedom and sovereignty. That is why Conservatives provided the first shipments of military aid to Ukraine and established Operation Unifier. And that is why Conservatives have been calling for the delivery of more lethal weapons since 2018. Conservatives will continue calling on the Canadian government to supply Ukraine with the weapons and munitions it needs to win this war, including 83,000 CRV-7 rockets. We will work to end the European reliance on Russian gas that helps fund Putin's barbaric war crimes against the Ukrainian people. We will always champion a message of freedom, peace, and democracy for Ukraine. We won't stop fighting for these crucial measures in Ukraine until it has won this war. Slava Ukraini!
Продовжуємо по-англійськи. Зараз буде по-українськи. What follows are excerpts from an op-ed by Alexandra Hachi, Ukrainian-Canadian Congress National President. For the last years, Russia has waged a genocidal war of annihilation against Ukraine. The Ukrainian people, through their courage and bravery, and supported by weapons and aid from NATO and the EU, stemmed the Russian onslaught. Ukrainian forces have liberated hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians and half the Ukrainian territory Russia occupied in the first weeks of the invasion. But to move further and faster, the Ukrainians need more help, principally air defenses and the ability to strike weapon depots deep in the Russian rear. Emerging on both the left and the right are louder and louder calls for Ukraine to negotiate with the Russian invader, and for the West to force Ukrainians' hand by cutting off military aid. Those who advocate for Ukraine to negotiate away its territory forget or choose to ignore two things. First, Putin's Russia has never negotiated in good faith, and there is no indication that they would do so now. Negotiation would simply give the Russians the chance to rearm, recalibrate, and attack Ukraine again from a more strategically advantageous position than they had on February 24th, 22. Second, and more importantly, abandoning Ukrainian territory to Russian occupation means abandoning Ukrainian citizens to the brutality and barbarism of Russian subjugation. It would allow the Russians to turn occupied Ukrainian lands into a new gulag. It means, in effect, reconciling with genocide. Recently, Canada's Parliament heard testimony from Ukrainian children who are among the thousands abducted by Russia, and who, with the assistance of non-government organizations, some were miraculously rescued and returned to their families. These children speak of a systematic campaign by their Russian captors to destroy their Ukrainian identity. The Ukrainian people will continue to fight for their children, but we need to help Ukraine with the war. This is the time for Canada and allies to invest in Ukrainian victory and in our defense. Today, the inventory of weapons and artillery is shockingly low, not only in Canada, but throughout the democratic world. We did not heed the warning signs that Russia was not and never would be our friend. The time is long past for Canada and its allies to ramp up defense production. In the first days of the war, when allies tried to convince President Zelensky to leave the capital, he told them, "I don't need a ride, I need ammunition." He still needs ammunition. Meeting our NATO obligations would allow us to make the case more effectively to our allies in the United States, primarily the isolationist wing of the Congressional Republican Conference, who oppose increasing assistance to Ukraine. That ongoing assistance to Ukraine is critical, and the Ukrainian victory is in the security interest of the NATO alliance. And if I may add, at least as a very minimum, it is shameful that our government has not even delivered on their promises they made. We must demand accountability. If the democratic world intends to protect its freedom, we must invest more in our defense and provide more aid to those fighting on the front lines of this battle. Key to winning this fight is ensuring the victory of Ukraine, the free world's citadel. Thank you. Glory to Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!
Протягом останніх років Росія вела геноцидну війну на знищення України. Український народ своєю мужністю та хоробрістю, підтриманий зброєю та допомогою НАТО та ЄС, стримав російський наступ. Українські війська звільнили сотні тисяч українців і половину української території, яку Росія окупувала в перші тижні вторгнення. Але щоб рухатися далі і швидше, українцям потрібна додаткова допомога, передусім протиповітряна оборона та здатність завдавати ударів по складах зброї глибоко в російському тилу. З'являються все голосніші заклики до України вести переговори з російським загарбником, а до західного світу примусити Україну вести ці переговори, припинивши військову допомогу. Ті, хто виступає за те, щоб Україна відмовлялася від своєї території, забувають або воліють ігнорувати дві речі. По-перше, Росія ніколи не вела переговорів чесно і не має жодних ознак того, що вони робитимуть це зараз. Переговори просто дали б росіянам шанс переозброїтися та знову атакувати Україну із більш стратегічно вигідної позиції, ніж вони мали 24 лютого 2022 року. По-друге, і що важливіше, віддати українську територію російській окупації означає віддати українських громадян на жорстокість і варварство російського поневолення. Це дозволило б росіянам перетворити окуповані українські землі на новий ГУЛАГ. Фактично, це означає примирення з геноцидом. Нещодавно парламент Канади заслухав свідчення українських дітей, які були серед тисячі вкрадених Росією, і які за сприяння громадських організацій були дивом врятовані та повернуті до своїх родин. Ці діти розповідали про системну кампанію російських поневолювачів щодо знищення їхньої української ідентичності. Український народ продовжуватиме боротьбу за своїх дітей. Але нам потрібно допомогти Україні виграти війну. Настав час для Канади та союзників інвестувати в українську перемогу і в нашу оборону. Сьогодні запаси зброї та артилерії вражаючи низькі не лише в Канаді, а й у всьому демократичному світі. Ми не зважали на попереджувальні сигнали про те, що Росія не була і ніколи не буде нашим другом. Канаді та її союзникам давно настав час нарощувати оборонне виробництво. У перші дні війни, коли союзники намагалися переконати президента Зеленського покинути столицю, він сказав їм: «Мені потрібна зброя, а не евакуація. Боєприпаси досі ще потрібні. Виконання наших зобов'язань перед НАТО дозволить нам ефективніше довести нашим союзникам у Сполучених Штатах, насамперед ізоляціоністському крилу республіканської партії Конгресу, які виступають проти збільшення допомоги Україні, що поточна допомога Україні є критично важливою, і що перемога України є важливою в інтересах безпеки Альянсу НАТО». Дозволимо сказати, принаймні як мінімум, це ганебно, що наш уряд навіть не виконав своїх обіцянок. Ми повинні вимагати відповідальності. Якщо демократичний світ має намір захистити свободу, ми повинні інвестувати більше в нашу оборону та надавати більше допомоги тим, хто воює на передовій цієї битви. Ключем до перемоги в цій боротьбі є забезпечення перемоги України, цитаделі вільного світу. Дякую. Слава Україні!
There is still time to see First Métis Man of Odessa, which runs at the 5 Points Theater in downtown Barrie until March 2nd. Merci for watching, and we'll see you down the river.